Hi, my name is Ocean Slim, and welcome to my review of Halo Infinite. Before we get into the review, I'd like to start with providing my personal history with the Halo franchise. Back in 2005, at the age of 13, I only had a PlayStation 2 in the home. One day my parents were attending a social event at a friend's house. Their son, who was a bit older than me, had an Xbox, and this game I had only heard of before called Halo 2. While parents were socializing, I played Halo 2 for the first time. From that point on, I had an obsession. I would go over to my friend's house any chance I got to play Halo 2. A couple of years later, Halo 3 was on the horizon, and I had convinced my parents to let me get an Xbox 360 so I could play it. I got the game at launch. On that day in my life, the world just felt different. Everyone was talking about it. I bought magazines, I followed the Munching podcast before podcasts were ever a thing, downloading every new episode on my iTouch. I followed the game extensively. I was stoked when Halo 3 Recon was announced, before the name was officially changed to ODST. I still have a couple of those Game Informers. I played the Reach beta when it became available for the first time. After its release, it was the only game I played for a time. It was of course followed by the release of Halo 4. I saw things drastically change through the years, but I enjoyed various aspects of each sequential release. Halo 5 was probably one of my favorite multiplayers in the franchise. I have my own criticisms of later games, as I'm sure some of you do as well. I've spent an extensive amount of time playing every single release of a new Halo game. But this video is about Halo Infinite. If you'd like to hear a more in-depth opinion of any of the other Halo games, let me know in the comment section. I love Halo. It's one of my favorite IPs of all time, just short of Pokemon. I'm passionate about this franchise. With all that said, I have a lot of criticisms about Infinite, so let's get into it. If this sort of conversation interests you, go ahead and hit the subscribe button to stay up to date when I upload a new video. Before I get too carried away, I'll start with some of the more positive aspects. For one, every single vehicle I've set foot in feels very good on the road. The physics simulation of the Warthog and Mongoose are the best I've ever felt in a Halo game. This might boil down to being able to change direction of the vehicle in mid-air, or various other changes under the hood. Sprinting. Sprinting. It was criticized heavily when it was added to Halo 4. I thought then that it was an overall good addition even though it changed a core mechanic of every previous title. With its addition, mobility became a non-issue to get around somewhat bigger maps, even when it didn't have vehicles. By the time Halo 5 got here, I'm not sure there was a shooter on the market that didn't have some form of sprinting. In Halo Infinite, 343 made a rather clever change I've been seeing increasingly in other games. That change? Field of vision widens when you start to sprint. This gives the player the feeling of going faster. If you compare the sprint speed to walking speed though, it's not that much faster. I think this is a great balance between having mobility while not making it so easy to just run away from conflict to recharge your shield. While some of the new weapons are questionable in design, they are very well balanced. I like the AR, it feels more useful than its implementation in previous titles while still being the weakest option when stacked up to any other gun on the map. Some of the maps in the technical review have shown good promise for unique design and intuitive verticality. This coupled with clambering makes it for a very smooth mobility throughout the map. I've also heard there will be a large quantity of maps on release. That's a great development. The audio design is wonderful. The weapons all sound unique and feel like they pack a punch. Nothing demonstrates this better than the sniper. The explosions are loud and deep. Jeff Steitzer is iconic, and his announcer voice lines sound better than ever. I also really like the addition of personal AIs. Training Arena is a fantastic addition for newcomers. It allows new players to understand the best way to effectively use all the weapons Halo has to offer. Heck, it even helped me hone my skills with some of the newer weapons. The Academy is a great way to introduce the core mechanics of Halo to those players that are inexperienced with the gunplay. Finally, the Tiny Hog. If 343 doesn't leave this in, it surely will be a missed opportunity. Now let's talk about some of the bad. There's a lot to cover here, so I want to break it up into two smaller sections: development issues and general game mechanics. We'll start with the general game mechanics. My biggest issue with the game currently is the entire user interface. Let's look at our screen here. As you can see at the top of the screen only displays our shield. Everything else has been relegated to the bottom of the screen. 343 may have been striving for a cleaner UI, but what this translates to is unintuitive HUD. With all these UI settings, you'd think there would be some sort of option for the player to change some of this to their liking. Sadly, the changes we're allowed to make are very superficial and surface level. A big problem I have is with how grenades are displayed. The only grenade shown in your UI is your active grenade. I'm constantly running around with something other than my frags, and I never even noticed I picked them up. I'll provide a few clips here to demonstrate what I'm talking about. In the first clip, you can see me walk backwards onto the spike grenade spawn. The only way to know I've even picked them up is to notice a small line added under my active grenades to indicate now that I have an additional grenade in my inventory. If I didn't know the spike grenade spawned there, or my AI didn't call it out, I would have no indication of what even grenades I picked up. Another example is here, where I meleeed my enemy who is carrying an additional spike grenade. In this case, there is a small pop-up, but if you're not Rain Man, you're likely going to miss it entirely. Every grenade type should be displayed separately on the screen. It's a better visual indication of what you have in your inventory. Here's one suggestion courtesy of Reddit user Dinkelberg that has a more traditional UI. This solves a lot of the problems I have with the current design, and 343 can learn a lot from the suggestions in this post. Another major criticism I have is with the equipment design. Firstly, there are only 6 different pieces of equipment in the whole game, and 2 of those are active camouflage and overshield. Compare this with Halo 3, which has 8 pieces of equipment plus active camo and overshield as separate power-ups. On top of that, the visual design of all the equipment is extremely similar. They're all big gray boxes with slightly different glowing lights. This makes them hard to distinguish on a busy battlefield. Let's again compare this to Halo 3's equipment, where even with a similar design, they seem to be easily distinguishable from a distance and all fill unique roles on the battlefield. The grapple opens opportunity for new and interesting gameplay like grabbing weapons and objectives, jumping to new heights, and more, but its inclusion feels like a gimmick. The drop shield is virtually useless. I don't even see it being used by others in any strategic or meaningful way. The repulsor is just a better gravity hammer effect without the damage, and the threat sensor wasn't even implemented in any of the Slayer matches in the preview, as far as I'm aware. But I can't see it being useful when other players already have a motion detector. The equipment in Halo Infinite is bland, generic, and poorly implemented. Equipment almost feels as if they were originally designed to be part of a loadout, like Halo Reach, before being scrapped for its current form. The game would have been better off with all of the equipment designs being closer to that of Halo 3. All in all, the equipment of Halo Infinite leaves a lot to be desired. Before moving on to some of the development issues, here are some more honorable mentions of poor game design. There is no player collision. Here is one clip that demonstrates why this is a terrible mechanic in a competitive shooter like Halo. The player is forced to switch targets mid-battle as his opponent phases through his teammate. Aiming feels off. I'm not the only one voicing this concern. Something is wrong. I'm no pro player, but I can pull off perfect kills rather consistently in Halo 5. My aim is all over the place with Infinite. Reddit user DHA Matthew says, I was talking to people in game chat and they all agree. Something is off with the aiming and I can't quite put my finger on it. But whatever it is, it's driving me crazy and having a really negative impact on my experience. I would have to agree with him. Energy weapons have been changed to operate just like other weapons that use bullets in regard to how ammo is picked up. This presents an issue with walking over a new weapon with one that has a partial charge. The additional charge on the new weapon is lost to the void. This may seem insignificant for something like the plasma pistol, but consider this is also how weapons like the sword and gravity hammer will operate now. The explosion knockback is all but turned off by default. Reddit user Infinity has provided a good example here. I can only imagine how this affects the meta of a competitive battlefield. On the same note, friendly fire is off by default. This means grenade spam is an actual issue that Halo has never had before. The motion detector needs some improvement to say the least. It's been reduced from 25 meters to 18 meters. I'm not even sure why they felt this was a necessary change. Many players have expressed a dislike for the lower radius. Some are not even sure it's actually 18 meters. It feels closer to 18 feet. Something I think Halo 5 got right was if you begin to sprint with low shields, it would cancel your shields recharging until you stopped sprinting. This meant you couldn't just run away from any conflict. You had to make an actual tactical decision to get behind or stay behind close cover instead of running and gunning every battle and fleeing anytime your shields get low. Lastly, metal designs have been changed to make them color coordinated with rarity. This is a small change, but as a Halo veteran, double kill not being yellow really bothers me. If you've made it this far in the video, please consider hitting the like button if you found any of the information presented to be useful. Now let's talk about some of the development issues. Halo Infinite has been in development for at least 3 years. The story entered the planning stages all the way back in 2015. Development director Frank O'Connor stated in August 2019 that Halo Infinite was being built, quote, "so it plays and looks fantastic." On top of this, 343 has had assistance from Skybox Labs, Sparasoft, the Coalition, Certain Affinity, and Atom Hawk. That's 7 different entities working on this game. 7. With the game having this much support from outside entities, you would think that they would have a solid project this far down the line. Perhaps it's the fact that so many people have had their hand in this game that makes it feel as if it lacks character. Fast forward to today. Halo Infinite has been delayed twice. In addition, on August 20th, 2021, it was announced that the game would be launching without campaign co-op. It also announced that Forge, a creative environment where players could design their own maps and game types, would not be available at launch. Forge and co-op campaign have been longtime features of the series, and it's disappointing they won't be available at launch. This is just but one decision that has some dedicated fans very upset. Even with the delays, Halo Infinite seems to be riddled with bugs. I think it's important to note that these are not weird niche glitches. These are easily identifiable bugs that have no business being in a game that's this far into development. I want to take a moment to rattle off a few of the bugs I'm referring to. Burst weapons make 3-shot sounds even though they only fire 1 shot. I wasn't able to grab the footage, but at the start of the match I was unable to sprint until after my first death. Plasma pistols are unable to EMP vehicles. It's still not clear if this is actually a bug or a new feature. Players can melee as fast as they can hit the reload button. This is being referred to as BXB, which is the button combo on the controller to initiate this infinite melee. Can I ask why exit to desktop is buried in the settings menu instead of in the main menu like basically any other game that's ever released? These are just a few of the bugs I personally ran into with my short time playing the test flight. The fact that they are persistent in the game less than 2 months before its launch is deeply concerning. If I had to point my finger at one of the bigger reasons for all these issues, I'd be pointing right to the microtransactions. I wanted to leave this conversation for last, as I know it can be a bit of a contentious issue. It's certainly just my opinion, but looking through the test flight, I certainly see a lot of development in this department. Why wouldn't they focus their efforts here? It is, after all, the only way they plan to monetize this title. This is what happens when a studio prioritizes form over function. This is the direct result of this business model. I can only hope it will be to their detriment and the game struggles after release. Sadly, I'm not so sure they will care when they start raking in all the cash from the holiday season. When Timmy begs his mom to buy him more credits on Christmas morning because he so desperately doesn't want to miss out on some stupid limited time Santa skin. The Battle Pass system stands in stark contrast to Halo 5's rec system. If I had to pick between the two, Halo 5 has the less intrusive system. I never even once thought about spending money on Halo 5, though there's a reason they opted for the Battle Pass. Simply put, it's more profitable. Gone are the days of being able to unlock customization by playing the game or achieving a difficult task. Now, cool armor only goes to show how much money you spent. AAA studios are increasingly churning out lackluster games that provide them with double the profit as their previous works. Why wouldn't they continue? Call me a conspiracy theorist, but I don't believe 343 for a second when they defend their decision to release the game without the aforementioned co-op campaign and Forge mode because, quote, fans have been waiting a really long time for this game, and, quote, Halo Infinite is a live game. That's a load of crap and one hell of an excuse. The decision to release it now and not delay it again is because they can't risk the financial loss they will suffer by not releasing it during the 2021 holiday season. Maybe it's just me, but I can't help but think this is the overarching reason 343 will not dedicate any time to porting Halo 5 to PC. It's a better game in my opinion than Infinite. Much of the conversation in this video has been focused on the multiplayer of Halo Infinite. Before coming to a close, I want to voice my concern for the campaign as well. Perhaps another video is on the horizon. We haven't seen much of anything about the campaign since 343 released their last video in an attempt to quell concerns about its rather poor initial reveal. Halo Infinite has some great new additions. On that note, there are some major obstacles in the way. With launch being less than 1 month away, I'm not holding my breath that this will at all be a good Halo game. I hope for everyone's sake that I'm dead wrong, and I can only hope 343 makes me eat my words. They have a lot of work to do now, and if they're listening, I hope they take some of my criticism seriously. I realize I'm opinionated, as is everyone else when it comes to games they're passionate about. However, I'm not the only one voicing their concern. If 343 doesn't address some of these issues, Halo Infinite will indeed be the worst Halo game ever to release. If that's the case, 343 will not be able to count on the cash cow they hope microtransactions will be. Halo Infinite must exist in a world full of other free-to-play games, and competition is stiffer now than it's ever been in the free-to-play space. That's gonna do it for this one. If you made it this far, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm not sponsored, and as you can probably see from my subscriber count, I'm not a big YouTuber. I was prompted to make this video as a result of my lackluster experience with the new game. I work Monday through Friday from 7 AM to 5 PM. I have a wife and a daughter. I'm very busy, and making this video took quite a bit of my already scarce time. I made it because I love Halo, and I would be remiss if I kept my mouth shut. If you like anything about this video, like it and hit the subscribe button. That's the best way to communicate to me that you appreciate videos like this. Maybe it will prompt me to make more. Thanks for watching.